having discussed a process for pulling together an informative speech, in that last lecture I talked about sort of the planning stages, trying to puzzle through some of the various elements. Let's go ahead and start that now for informative speeches in general and for your informative speech if you choose to do it for this class and upload it, how you'd puzzle through that. So I want to talk a little bit about planning an informative speech. What are some of the things that you need to keep in mind at the very beginning of that type of a project? So I think one of the ways that you can start this is by puzzling through some of the constraints you face as an informative speaker. So you may remember back to the very first week of this class, we talked about speaking situations, the rhetorical situation. So I'd like to use that as a lens for thinking about some of the constraints that you face and the opportunities that you face as someone who's speaking to inform. So in this video lecture, I want to talk a little bit about adapting to your rhetorical constraints. I want to talk very broadly about some general types of informative speeches, then a little bit about dialing in your topic and adjusting your topic to the time constraints and your audience, and then finally spending some time thinking through what you might choose to do for a speech for this particular online course. So let's return to the speaking situations, to the constraints in a rhetorical situation. Well, typically a speaker addresses a number of constraints: the topic, the audience, the speaker, the occasion and setting, and the time allotted. So let's kind of think through each one of these and how these might limit and open some possibilities for informative speaking. So in thinking through some of these various rhetorical constraints, we first are presented with topic. So in this class, this is a rare opportunity. Speech classes are sort of an arbitrary situation where people are bound together. That public, that audience is called into being by no other reason than giving a speech. And that doesn't happen anywhere else, right? If you're at your job, there is a reason that you are being called to present on an idea. It's either to give an update or to present us with new information. If you're pulling an audience together, there's a reason for that. Normally, the topic is the reason people gather together, not merely the idea of engaging in a speech. So as you're working through informative speaking for this class and for outside this class, you want to start thinking about, well, what is the topic? What's the topic going to be for this presentation? Is it pre-selected? If so, what flexibility do you have? Are there some things that you know have to be in the presentation itself? So sometimes if I'm called to speak and I'm doing sort of fundraising type stuff, people will want me to, they'll give me some information. They're like, whatever you say, make sure you include this. So that's a constraint. I know that whatever I say, I got to find some way to incorporate that. As a side note, anytime somebody gives me stuff to speak on, more often than not, they've written it as copy, but they haven't written it as it would be used in a speech. So I always want to get that ahead of time so I can revise it and make it part of my presentation. Because if I'm trying to read it, it's too much information. So I'm thinking through the topic. What sort of flexibility do I have? So do I have all the key information that I need? Do I need to maybe do a little bit of background research on this topic before I actually present on it? So the topic itself is a constraint on what you're going to be able to do in that presentation. So is the audience. How much does that audience already know? If the audience does know a lot, are they favorably disposed towards your topic, or do they not so much like it? And if it's negative, do you need to achieve your goals, do you need to respond to those concerns at that time? So if they've got some bad preconceptions about your topic and you want to inform them, do you need to address their concerns? Or are they minor and you don't, and addressing it just calls more attention to it and eats up time that you could spend on other things? So once again, in the informative speech, you're making a lot of judgments, and at the very broadest level, figuring out what you're going to address is a matter of thinking through these various potential constraints. Constraints on you as a speaker. What's your background with the topic? How long have you been working on this? What type of, does the audience know about your expertise? If not, do you need to tell them? Would that help the audience understand the speech better and maybe take you as a speaker more as an expert on the topic? Do you need to inform them of that? The occasion. What are the expectations around this presentation? What do people think they're going to be getting out of this? What's the room setup like? Will there be questions afterwards? In which case, all of these are going to shape what you can actually talk on, or how much time you want to allocate to the talk itself, how much time you want to allocate to questions. And that's the big one here, time. How much time do you have? Because that's going to affect what points you include. So as you're starting to think through and develop a topic, develop a presentation, you're developing it in response to a set of ideas or a set of expectations. Some of these may be already set, some of them may be at your discretion, some of them are flexible. But I do think that rhetorical situation and some of those questions can help you puzzle through and begin this process of fitting the speech to the situation so that it's really achieving what it needs to achieve. So now I want to shift a little bit and kind of help you think through some of your other options. So just very broadly, what are some of the types of informative speeches you might give? Well, certainly there are presentations on objects. So I mentioned a while back talking about someone in technology who would be introducing somebody to a new product, a technology product. Here are the features it has. That's an informative speech. It's a discussion of an object or an event. Maybe you want to make sure people know about a fundraising walk or something. You need to be able to speak on that in a way that informs them what the event is, when it's happening, and what it's for. Presentations on people and places. If I was going to talk about the major attractions of Seattle, that's an informative speech. Or processes. So I've taught a class on how to apply to graduate school. Well, a speech on that is an informative speech. Now it's providing my approach to it, but I'm incorporating some knowledge, experience, research into that talk. But it's a discussion of a process, how one does something. Explaining new ideas to us, universal design as a way of thinking about how to develop classes or how to develop technology, not thinking about people who are capable and have problems with capability, but just designing everything universally so that everyone can access it. And then certainly we get into the types of presentations that I know at least many of you in this course are dealing with. Progress reports, project updates, talking about quarterly earnings or survey data, providing informative speeches at your workplace, or if you're a scholar, presenting research as a teacher or as a student. All of these are different subgenres of informative speaking.